Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. A massive commitment for Kalen DeBoer in Alabama in the 2026 cycle as four-star quarterback Jett Thomalla from the state of Nebraska, flipping his commitment from Iowa State to Alabama. From a pure roster building standpoint, this one makes so much sense for so many different reasons. I mean, you look at Jett Thomalla and say, hey, big time upside in terms of what this kid can offer you from a physical traits perspective, but probably going to need a couple of years until he's ready to be the quarterback one in the SEC. Coming from high school football in Nebraska to the SEC, that's going to be a big time jumping competition that he's going to need a couple of years to acclimate to that level. Well, guess what? He's got plenty of time to get acclimated because he has the opportunity now to sit behind Keelan Russell for the next couple of years and develop into a quarterback that I think could be a dang good one over the next couple of years. We knew that it was going to be very hard for Alabama to land an elite quarterback in the 2026 cycle that was willing to come in and follow Keelan Russell. So you probably wanted to go to a quarterback that we think has some upside, that we think has the potential to be a starting quarterback, but probably needs a little bit more development. Jett Thomalla is the perfect guy to bring in behind Keelan Russell. Look, if we're talking about Jett Thomalla in a couple of years being the quarterback one for Alabama and being a dang good one at that, would not be surprised in the slightest. And you start getting into Jett Thomalla, why does this fire me up the most? I mean, number one, this kid's wired the right way. I really admire the quarterbacks that are willing to come into a room that has a guy like Keelan Russell and say, hey, I'm not afraid to either sit the bench or come and compete with a guy like Keelan Russell. There are so many quarterbacks at the high school ranks and in the collegiate ranks that are just looking for an easy path to starting. Normally, those are the quarterbacks that are not all that good. So Jett Thomalla telling us that he's willing to come in and compete for the first couple of years, that's something I think a lot of Alabama fans certainly appreciate. And then the second part, and this might be the most important part about Jett Thomalla, or at least why I like him the most. This dude is on a fast track at the quarterback position in terms of getting better very, very quickly. I mean, you go back to the sophomore year film and say, all right, there's some serious work that needs to take place in this kid's game. You take a look at the numbers and say, all right, 60% completion percentage, 2,800 yards, 26 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. In the state of Nebraska, that's certainly not eye-popping numbers. And then you go to the 2024 year, 70% completion percentage, 3,600 yards, 47 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. That massive jump from the sophomore to junior year, that should fire up a lot of Alabama fans because we talk about so many quarterbacks that get maxed out as sophomores and juniors. I think Keelan Russell was another good example of a guy that just consistently got better during his high school career. I'm going to say the very same thing for a guy like Jett Thomalla. Now he's going to have the opportunity to go compete at the Elite 11 that starts tonight and maybe show that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the 2026 cycle. You got some big time traits. You got some development that needs to take place, but he's going to have the opportunity to sit and develop at Alabama, not to mention Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and their track record at developing quarterbacks. This one makes a ton of sense. We're going to get into a little bit of the film, talk about what Jett Thomalla brings to this Alabama offense before we get into it. As always, to the Alabama fans, look, it's been a quote-unquote slow start to Alabama's 2026 cycle in terms of commitments. But to the Alabama fans that follow the recruiting trail pretty damn closely, from what we're hearing, we're going to be breaking down a lot of high-caliber commitments for Alabama over the next couple of days, or next couple of weeks, I should say. Buckle in. Kalen DeBoer is turning it up on the recruiting trail. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into Jett Thomalla, and let's start with, what we like about this kid before we get into some of the film. What I like the most, especially a fit in the terms of the Kalen DeBoer offense, this kid has the ability to make any throw on the football field. Really big arm, really big frame, pushes the ball vertically down the field at a very high level. Now, there are some consistency things that need to be cleaned up, but this kid has the ability to make all the throws required to run the Kalen DeBoer offense. And then I think the other thing I really like, and I think the biggest difference, because I think, maybe the immediate comp goes to a guy like Austin Mack, bigger quarterback with a bigger arm that can sling the pill all around the yard. I think the problem with Austin Mack at times, even going back to his high school days, was wasn't the most creative quarterback in terms of getting himself out of trouble, getting himself out of the pocket, and kind of making plays for your offense. Look, Jett Thomalla ain't no Jalen Milroe. He ain't no Lamar Jackson. But this kid is a better athlete than you would think in terms of getting himself out of trouble and throwing off platforms. Got a basketball background. You certainly see that show up on the football field. The biggest problem with a lot of these bigger, pro style build quarterbacks is they just aren't very creative outside the pocket. I think Jett Thomalla has, I don't know if I go as far to say like plus athleticism, but he's a guy that can get you out of trouble. And I think that means something when you're talking about college quarterbacks, because look, this ain't the NFL. It ain't going to be perfect around you. You need a quarterback that can go make some plays. And I think Jett Thomalla has the ability to do that at the quarterback position. And I'm fired up to hear what we hear from him out at the Elite 11. Like this was kind of the point 12 months ago where Keelan Russell kind of took a stranglehold as one of the best quarterbacks in the 2025 class. I wonder if we kind of hear the same thing about a guy like Jett Thomalla, who, 12 months ago, this guy was not a super coveted power four quarterback. He all of a sudden became one really, really damn quick. And Alabama moves in really quickly and gets this one done. Things that probably need to be cleaned up again. I think just consistency is still a thing that Jett Thomalla is working at. And the other thing I'd say is like the throwing with anticipation, which a lot of high school quarterbacks don't do a ton of. He's a guy that needs to see it before he rips it. And again, that's very common for quarterbacks at the high school ranks. You want to see him be able to anticipate some throwing windows, throw with a little bit more anticipation. If that comes together, this kid can win you a lot of football games at the quarterback position. You get into a little bit of the film in it, and man, it's a laser throw. And he's a guy that's willing to stand in the pocket and keep his eyes downfield. So many young quarterbacks struggle with this. Look, a little bit of a muddy pocket. We're stepping up, keeping our eyes downfield effortlessly. Almost 70 yards or 60 yards in the air and throwing a dot there that throws a very, very nice deep ball, gets himself out of trouble, which is when you're talking about these 6'4" plus quarterbacks, they don't all do that very well. Throwing off platform, not a lot of quarterbacks can make this kind of throw. Jett Thomalla can, speaking to his ability to make any throw that Kalen DeBoer is going to ask. Managing the pocket, stepping up, eyes downfield, rips it. Yeah, again, his ability to push the ball down the field, very, very high. I think he manages pockets pretty damn well as well. I think he's a gamer. Here's another thing that I like about Jett Thomalla. State champ his junior year on a high school team that hasn't won a state championship in 15 years. I value that at the high school level. When I'm talking about quarterbacks I want running my team, I want guys who won football games, who has shown that even at the high school ranks, when it's time to make big time plays for my team, I'm going out there and making it happen. And I think Jett Thomalla is one of those guys. Really, really accurate, pushing the ball down the field. Oftentimes drops it in the bucket and can make a lot of different throws too. He can put it on a line, but he can also layer that football over the top as well. I like this one. I think it makes a ton of sense for a ton of different reasons for Alabama. You look at the 2026 cycle, only 7 commitments. Here's what I'll say, though. The average grade for Alabama's commitments is a 94. They're averaging a top 100 prospect committed to Alabama in 2026. I don't know if it's going to be a huge class for Alabama in 2026, but the guys that they sound to be bringing in are going to be some of the best players that you see in the country, doing a really good job in the state of Alabama as well, which was a little bit of a talking point for Kalen DeBoer 12 months ago. And I was probably a little bit too critical of Kalen DeBoer 12 months ago in terms of what he was doing recruiting the state. Hindsight 2020, probably should have given him some time to build some relationships in the state before we were going to criticize him for not recruiting the state well, because he's doing a dang good job in the 2026 cycle. Makes a lot of sense. Really good quarterback. Again, if we're talking about this kid being quarterback 1 in 4 years, I really wouldn't be surprised. I think he'd be a damn good one. And he's going to a program that has Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb running this offense, where I think he fits the offense well, and he's going to be coached by some of the best in the country. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.